marshes and swamps have been a source of myth and superstition for centuries. But there is a story that most outside of Louisiana have never heard. The story of an infernal scourge that has inhabited the swamp of southern Louisiana for well over a century, claiming at the very least 500 victims. Alligators, cannibals, supernatural beasts, or people getting lost is passed off as the explanation. The Atchafalaya Swamp in south central Louisiana is a sinister entity that has stricken an area known as Hell's Patch, or Hell's Respierre in French. It was called by the French settlers in the early 18th century La Bruyère Mature, the murdering fog. The story is that on nights of the waning moon, the swamp becomes engulfed in a thick, burning mist. The waning moon is a phase where the moon takes a crescent shape between full moon and new moon, also known as a moon of retribution. The waning moon can last from 2 to 5 nights. When the waning moon is on its 5-night cycle, anyone entering the Devil's Patch rarely escapes with their life. For what the local French Cajuns call Nights of the Waning Souls, they appear. The lore tells of sounds in the night, akin to burning wood collapsing into the fire. Softly at first, but then the further you go, the louder it gets. More like a burning building collapsing upon itself. The fog becomes heavy, almost solid. It sticks to your skin like spider webs. Whispered voices in the mist become screams of agony. As the fog encircles you, dim silhouettes slowly come into view. Moving with the fog, the air burns hot with hate and wrath. The shadow's eyes glow like embers in the breeze, flashing in the misty blankness. Survivors of the waning souls are few. The fortunate ones describe a feeling of the air filling with overwhelming anger or enmity. One survivor, Paget Girard, in 1853 described it as being smothered by the smoke of the auto de fe, an old clerical term for burning heretics at the stake. Crimson rain showers the woods. Tormented screams thunder from the entity and their victims. Shreds of seared flesh have been found scattered among the ground and trees days later, but neither showed sign of being burned. Search parties have described scattered, charred bones, but no evidence of animal predation, no footprints, except for the poor souls who remain littered the forest floor. Cajun lore tells of an old settlement built in the mid-1700s by early French settlers. One night, the heads of the village heard a rumor that the Haitian slaves that lived in one building on the edge of the settlement were planning an insurrection. So on a foggy night, at the time of the waning moon, the men of the village locked the door of the slaves' quarters and set the building alight. The terrified and brutal screams of the slaves could be heard for miles. The men standing outside waved their torches and laughed as the building burned to the ground. The slaves began screaming Urzu la Flambeau over and over until the roof collapsed, silencing their anguished chant. The next month, on the night of the waning moon, the villagers were awakened by eerie sounds coming from the forest. They all gathered in the middle of the village, as the sounds got closer. The people shuddered with fear as ghoulish screams filled the humid air. The screams became chants of Azul la Flambeau, Azul la Flambeau, meaning Azul of the torch, a voodoo revenge spirit. The priest, in an act of defiance, opened his Bible and read scripture as he boldly entered the fog. Within moments, the villagers were horrified to see a shower of blood and shredded pages of the priest's Bible jutting out of the mist. Swiftly, the entire settlement became a morass of blood-soaked earth and scattered bones and flesh. But one family survived the onslaught, escaping the wrath of the reigning souls. No one knows why they were spared. Perhaps they treated their slaves well, or they wanted their story told. Since then, nobody has ever found the village, but the revenge is still taking place, taking the lives of the weary over the centuries. So if you plan to visit the swamps of the Atchafalaya, look at the night sky. If you see the moon of retribution,